Ladies and gentlemen, the country is experiencing a shortage in policing. Can't say that I'm disappointed about that. So let's get into this story that came out on weedmaps.com, May 15th, 2019. The shortage of sworn law enforcement officers throughout the United States is spreading. See, and what's happening, ladies and gentlemen, a lot of people are turned off by policing from looking at the video footage that's always coming out in these unarmed shootings. People tend to also shy away because the pay is lousy. Although the severity may vary from state to state, the trend is clear. Law enforcement agencies are struggling to fill their ranks with qualified applicants, and drug tests may be partly to blame. People trying to be police cannot even pass a drug test. The Bureau of Justice Statistics confirmed in an August 2018 report that the country's approximately 700,000 full-time police officers had fell by about 23,000 from 2013. The National Police Support Fund called the police. Some recruiters say the job market is rife with other more attractive and less dangerous jobs. Some blame the controversies resulting from increased scrutiny. Some law enforcement officers have been exposed to with the rise of cell phone recordings and viral videos of police brutality. And there are states that try to where police officers were pushing to pass laws to stop people from recording. So in other words, we're going to do our dirt, but you can't show us doing our dirt. We want to do it, and we want to remain anonymous about it, but we still going to come beat you up and kill you. We just don't want you to broadcast it everywhere. Others say drug testing is eliminating potential recruits. All three are true, according to Chris Davis, Assistant Chief of Police with the Portland Police Bureau in Oregon, where the recruit shortage has been especially painful. So they are having a bad problem in Portland with filling police positions. Too many junkies, I guess. Too many meth heads and opioid junkies. In addition to the strong economy and more career choices, there's been a generational shift. Back in the day, training and recruiting videos used to show SWAT teams breaking into drug-infested areas and shootouts with violent gangs, David said. Those situations are rare and not what millennials and young people are interested in as a career choice. So this millennial generation said, fuck no, we don't want to be cops. Davis said PBB is trying to rebrand what they do, which happens to be mostly helping people. Hard to tell. Still, the PPB, which pays $64,409 annually with $5,000 in starting bonuses, is struggling to fill 120 open posts for sworn officers and 36 for non-sworn positions that amount to a 12% vacancy rate. It didn't help when in late March 2019, the PPB did background checks on 61 prospective candidates and only 3 passed. What? Oh my, woo, this is really bad. Wait, you had 61 people applying to be a Portland cop, but only 3 passed the background check? Oh man, y'all are some pathetic people up there in Portland. Out of the 3 who passed, 1 went to another agency. So we only gained 2 recruits, Davis said. Wow. Damn. The 2 biggest problems, Davis told Weed Map News, is past drug use and dishonest uncovered in the recruiting investigation, which are extremely thorough. To join the largest city in Portland's police force as a sworn officer, an applicant cannot have used any marijuana products within the last year. So I guess those other people that didn't make the cut must have had some weed in their system. For non-sworn carry guns, the requirement is 4 months, free of weed for 4 months. We lose more applicants over the issue of lying about drug use than drug use itself, Davis said. Wow. Polygraph testing for employment purposes in the state of Oregon is prohibited. Hence, the NIDA 5 drug test provided by the National Institute on Drug Abuse, which screened potential police candidates for marijuana, cocaine, oh man, PCP, opiates, and amphetamines. This 5-panel drug screen is a standard used for the federal government mandatory guidelines for workplace drug testing. And because marijuana use is a federal crime, Davis said the PPB cannot legally transfer a gun to a so-called drug user. Some cities have stopped taking those federal restrictions into account because, yeah, they can't get nobody. Portland, Maine is one of the cities that is reevaluating its stance on drug testing for marijuana, according to the police department's new hire information as of March 2018. Recent marijuana use is no longer an automatic disqualifier. Yeah, because they can't, all those potheads up there in Portland and drug users, they got to make changes. It's now being considered in context of the candidate's entire background. Therefore, marijuana use will be reviewed on a case-by-case basis and will be considered based on, but not limited to, recency and frequency. Yeah, but they're lying on the application. No, I don't do drugs, and then they find drugs. Wow. Do y'all arrest them? Oh, I'm just curious. Okay. Former Portland police chief and current commissioner of Maine Department of Public Safety, Michael Sawchuk, called the practice of disqualifying marijuana users as police candidates outdated. I want to look at frequency and recency stuff. If you smoke a joint in a parking lot before you come in to take a test, it's probably not going to go good. Yeah, I would gather that too, Sauce Chalk. Over a year after the March 2018 decision not to disqualify cannabis users, so they made changes. If somebody don't pass a drug test due to marijuana, they're not going to just throw everything out as a disqualifier. We continue to review marijuana use by police applicants, focusing on frequency, recency, and totality of the circumstances. Okay. Robert M. Swartz, former executive director of the Maine Chief of Police Association, which had opposed Maine's successful effort to legalize recreational marijuana in November 2016, said the changes made sense. The people you get today who want to become a police officer, very seldom you will find someone who has not tried marijuana, Swartz told the Portland Press. So, in other words, there are a bunch of potheads there. So, let's accept that fact, but don't rule them out for that reason. Shouldn't police department in Oregon, in which 1973 was the first state to decriminalize cannabis, which approved medical marijuana in 1998 and which approved adult use marijuana in 2014, consider doing the same. Portland, Oregon's assistant police chief says no. We are obligated to adhere to the federal government's categorization of marijuana as a Schedule I drug and to be a 100% drug-free workplace, Davis said. What other agencies are doing with drug tests and restrictions on marijuana users, shrinking the pool of recruits and police officers retiring faster than departments can fill the vacancies. Other police departments are adapting. According to a report by the Police Executive Research Forum, some police recruits are relaxing rules on past drug use, while other departments are offering large bonuses, 4-day work weeks, or even changing their standards to tattoos. But you know what? How do you relax the rules for marijuana to hire cops, but then you turn busting people for marijuana? Major contradiction, y'all. Major contradiction. To me, if you're going to do away with drug testing for marijuana for cops, then you should not be out here nabbing people for marijuana. If I'm not right on this and you feel that I'm wrong, please, ladies and gentlemen, put it in the comment section. I don't believe there should be double standards. I mean, America operates on double standards, but I think it's wrong to have double standards in this case. So far, not much seems to be helping. Of the nearly 400 police departments surveyed by PERF, 66% said their number of applicants was still decreasing. The Spare Foot blog, along with a job site, Indeed, listed 10 metro areas with the most demand and job listing for police officers. 5 are in California, and the others are in Washington, D.C., Denver, Atlanta, Houston, and Dallas. Adult use marijuana is legal in California, Colorado, and the District of Columbia. The Dallas Police Department under Chief Renee Hall, whatever, is taking another look at applicants who would normally not qualify because of minor drug use infractions. They will now be viewed on a case-by-case basis. Again, if you're going to relax the rules for marijuana just to hire cops, you need to relax the rules for everybody. A new theory of policing. It wasn't always this difficult. A decade ago, the Seattle Police Department received 3,000 applicants for just 10 openings, according to ABC News. In 2018, Seattle police recruit applications declined by nearly 57% in a department where the starting salary is $79,000, and the city council recently approved a $1,500 signing bonus. Jeffrey Fagan, professor of law at the Columbia Law School in New York, has an entirely different take on how to deal with the police shortage in the U.S., and it is not higher pay or marijuana related. It's a question we never really ask. How many police officers do we really need? Okay. We only ask how many police we can afford, said Fagan, whose research and scholarship examines policing, the legitimacy of criminal law and capital punishment, and juvenile crime and punishment. I don't think the answer is more police. The answer is a smaller number of smart police. They got smart cops in America. Okay. Um, nor more temperate, seriously well trained, and highly regulated professionals, said Fagan via email, and far fewer of them. So much for passing police jobs from generation to generation in families, you know. In fact, the few police that I spoke to here in my state, they said they don't want their kids to be cops. You know, before it was, oh, well, my grandfather was a cop and his father was a cop and this one was a cop, and they could go back generations in their families and everybody was a cop all the way up until today. But now, today's generation, they are not interested in that, not anymore. So now you see nationwide shortages in policing. You know, ladies and gentlemen, just looking at these bad cops out here, I'm starting to believe this is a good thing. But tell me what you think. Please leave your comment and subscribe. Don't forget to hit on the notification bell, and I'll see you on the next video. Peace, family. Ladies and gentlemen, the cocaine deaths are rising in America. And, you know, a lot of it has to do with fentanyl. Lately, there has been a lot of fentanyl laced in to the cocaine, which is causing a higher rise in death. And this seems to be happening, you know, in places where you have a high amount of cocaine usage. I know it's been skyrocketing in New York with the cocaine deaths and many other places around the US. And, you know, of course, like anything else, it's spreading. So this came out on Fox News May 4th, 2019. Opioid plague helps explain rise in cocaine deaths report. Death by cocaine is rising in America, and the opioid plague, the nation's deadliest overdose epidemic, is at fault. Health officials said Thursday. Researchers at the Center for Disease Control and Prevention found that nearly 3/4 of the deaths involving cocaine in 2017 were among people who had also taken opioids. You know, I did some stories on, you know, what they were finding in coroner offices, and they said the average person that comes into the coroner's office have 2 to 3 different mixes of drugs in their system, and sometimes all of that along with alcohol. So I'm not surprised that it's cocaine users, and they also are using opioids. But deaths involving cocaine alone also increased, said the CDC's Lauren Scholl, one of the study's authors. The researcher did not look at why cocaine deaths have been increasing. The new report goes through 2017, the last year for which complete statistics are available. After several years of decline, overdose deaths involving cocaine began rising around 2012. They jumped then a third between 2016 and 2017. Ohio was the state with the highest cocaine death rate. Well, imagine that. They are the same state that has the highest opioid death rate, too. They're definitely up there. But the largest relative increases were in Wisconsin and Maryland. The increase in cocaine deaths at least partly reflect trends in deaths from heroin, fentanyl, and other opioids. Many overdose deaths involve several different drugs. Yeah, that's really consistent with most of these medical examiners say. Health officials say about 70,000 Americans died of overdoses in 2017. And then again, they are lowballing the numbers, y'all. It's way higher than that. The CDC only reports from 22 states, not all 50 states. So any numbers they give you is an undercount. Nearly 48,000 involved at least one type of opioid. About 28,000 deaths involve fentanyl or some other synthetic opioid. 15,000 involved heroin, and 14,500 involved prescription opioids. Just under 14,000 involve cocaine, according to the new report. Some preliminary data from CDC suggests that deaths from cocaine continued to rise early in 2018, but may have leveled off last summer. But this is just provisional data. Caution, one of the CDC reports. Other author is Bazi Carilsa. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, it's just another thing killing these folks by drug usage. It is one of these things they absolutely cannot control in America. They let it spiral so badly out of control. This is why they come out strongly talking about it's a public health issue. It's a public health issue because they don't want to mass incarcerate their own people. That's what it really boils down to. Okay, so don't let them try to fool you with this, oh, we've changed, we see things differently. They haven't changed, because if they really change, they wouldn't be jailing Black men of marijuana today. How come that doesn't fall under public health? There's a reason for that. So until they get everybody on the same page, I'm not going to fall for this public health stuff. They just don't want to jail their own people for drugs like they did during the crack epidemic. Because if they did, you would see them getting mass incarcerated big time. Please leave your comment and subscribe. Don't forget to hit on the notification bell, and I'll see you on the next video. Peace, family. Ladies and gentlemen, America is desperate to keep Black men in jail at all costs, even if they have to get you on some of the most pettiest things that we see even today. Marijuana is the biggest reason why Black men are in jail. Crime is down in America. So anybody that's telling you how horrible crime is and Black people are doing this and they're lying. Crime is down in America. And if you have access to a computer, you can look these things up yourself. Nobody should have to provide you with anything. Let Google do the talking for you. So one of the main reasons why I believe they are going to keep hanging on for dear life and jailing Black men for marijuana is because of the money that is being made through corporations behind bars. If they let a big bulk of the population of prison go, the prisons will fall. Okay? They will not be able to keep prisons open if marijuana is no longer a reason for conviction. America jails will fall. Okay? They don't have enough people in there for any other type of crime that can get all of this work done. And you see from the rape convictions, they refuse to jail their own people. And letting black people go means the prison industry falls, because the bulk of them are in there on marijuana charges. Well, Marilyn Mosby, and I did a video on this, I believe it was probably sometime in February. She came out and said that there were going to be no more marijuana arrests, regardless to the amount of marijuana is found on a person, or even if they have a past conviction for marijuana. You would not have to worry about being jailed anymore. Well, there were 2 judges that struck this down. Remember, judges are elected. When these judges come up for their next election, you folks in Baltimore, you need to get rid of them. But just understand, America is going to hang on for dear life to keep black men under these these little frivolous convictions. And just remember, it was the same way right after chattel slavery. They had to figure out a way to get you back into free labor. What did they do? They came up with the convict lease program. And who did they jail? Black men primarily. Loitering, vagrancy, unemployment, petty shit. Sometimes you didn't have to do nothing. They just wanted to lock you up, just like we see today. You don't have to do anything to get arrested in America. Okay, you don't have to do anything wrong. You don't have to break a law. You don't have to do nothing, and you will still get arrested in America. That's how badly they have the system rigged up. These folks are desperate. Judges deny requests by Baltimore State Attorney Marilyn Mosby. And I agree with her. She wanted to dismiss thousands of marijuana convictions. City judges have thrown out the request from Baltimore State's Attorney Marilyn Mosby to erase convictions in nearly 5,000 cases of marijuana possession. The decision Friday by Circuit Judge W. Michelle Pearson and District Judge Kathleen Sweeney strike down one of the boldest and most progressive moves of Mosby's administration. And y'all need to get rid of these judges, y'all. In Baltimore, y'all need to get rid of these judges. They are elected. So since they are elected, you can vote them out. In an email Monday, Mosby said she was deeply disappointed. The role that courts play in our society is to be a place of last resort for people who have been wronged, she said. I am deeply disappointed that this ruling did not afford us any opportunity to present legal arguments and essentially eliminated the court from being a safe harbor for those that were harmed by the discriminatory enforcement of marijuana laws. Exactly. Mulby said she was considering her next move. She had announced in January that she would cease prosecuting cases of marijuana possession, as well as asked the court to throw out thousands of convictions stretching back to 2011. She had called the move monumental for justice in Baltimore. In a sweeping legal document, Mosby had asked the judges to throw out about 1,000 marijuana convictions in the circuit court and nearly 3,800 in district court. Sweeney, the district judge, answered the 10-page decision that noted Mosby fell short in meeting 5 requirements for such an order. She wrote that Mosby document writ of coram nobis skimped on details to show how those convicted face significant collateral consequences, one of the 5 requirements. Wow. Okay. With 3,778 opportunities, the state failed to identify any actual single consequence suffered by these individuals, Sweeney said. What do you mean? What do you mean? When these people are jailed, a lot of times if they have jobs, they lose their jobs. You lose income. You cannot be a breadwinner to your family. What do you mean? What did they lose? What would Sweeney, what would they lose if they locked your ass up for something petty? What would be lost? Oh, man, this is right up there with what is blackface. Man, please, y'all, don't fall for this stuff they're doing. The judge found that the request amounted to a blatant conflict because Mosby is bound by oath to defend the state. I tell you what, the state ain't in danger of nobody because they got some marijuana on them. Get real. Sweeney also noted that 3,778 people would be eligible to have their convictions expunged from the records. Since fiscal year 2015, expungements have spiked from 7,700 to more than 19,000 annually in Baltimore, wrote Sweeney, citing court records. Mosby herself had once asked police to crack down on drug dealers and users in West Baltimore. In March 2015, the judge wrote, now this same state attorney claims that drug enforcement in Baltimore City, presumably her own efforts, have had a desperate impact on African Americans, Sweeney wrote. It has. Y'all need to get rid of Sweeney. Whoever she is, y'all need to get rid of this judge. Find out when she's up for election again, and y'all need to go out in droves and get rid of her. Mosby had argued that marijuana convictions have saddled thousands in Baltimore with criminal records and frustrated their job searches. She has said these arrests disproportionately affected minority neighborhoods in Baltimore. Baltimore police arrest about 1 person a day for marijuana possession, as Mosby promises to end prosecutions. Nationwide, African Americans are 4 times more likely than whites to be arrested for possessing marijuana, which is stupid. Again, ladies and gentlemen, they got to get that prison work done. They don't care if they got to get you in there for doing nothing. That's how desperate they are to keep the prisons bustling with people. The ratio jumps to 6 times more likely in Baltimore, Mosby wrote in a report about her new marijuana policy. Olivia Nuggle, of the nonprofit marijuana policy project in D.C., stood alongside Mosby at the January announcement. She called the judge's decision a shame. The unfortunate news underscores the urgent need for the General Assembly to end marijuana prohibition and start regulating cannabis for adult use, she wrote in an email. The court's decision also highlights the need to include a component that will automatically expunge criminal records for past convictions. The sooner the legislature acts, the sooner these needless marijuana possession arrests can end, and the sooner those with past convictions can move on with their lives. Though Mosby pledged to stop prosecuting people for possession, for possessing marijuana, city police said they already have shifted their focus away from pot smokers. Shortly after Mosby's announcement, the police spokesman said the department was arresting about one person per day for marijuana possession. Now, that's still too many. You shouldn't be arresting anybody. Marijuana is being legalized in America every day in different states. You shouldn't be even doing one person a day at this point. Officers arrested 363 people last year, 339 people in 2017, 311 people in 2016 for marijuana possession alone, according to the department. Mosby aligned herself with some of the most progressive district attorneys in the country with her marijuana policy. Philadelphia District Attorney Larry Krasner told his prosecutors last year to reject charges of marijuana possession regardless of weight. Last July, Manhattan District Attorney Cyrus Vance Jr. announced he too would stop prosecuting marijuana cases. Meanwhile, public opinion has swung in favor of legalizing marijuana. 10 states and D.C. have legalized the use of marijuana by adults. Maryland lawmakers decriminalized possession of up to 10 grams of marijuana in 2014. Well, you know what? You need to go a step further and stop locking people up for that reason. It's stupid. It really is. You know, you would think because it's becoming legalized, they would move away from this. But as I stated before, if they can no longer get you on marijuana, black man, they will come up with something new and something even more petty to put you in there for. But please tell me what you think, ladies and gentlemen. Please leave your comment and subscribe. Don't forget to hit on the notification bell, and I'll see you on the next video. Peace, family. Many of you have been following my stories that I have done over the past over 2 years now on YouTube on, the fentanyl trafficking that's coming in from China. And really, drugs are coming in from all borders. But we usually hear about China and Mexico the most, but it's also coming in through Canada as well. Drugs have been a real hot topic in America. It has been something they have not been able to control. And believe me, what's going on now has long passed the crack epidemic. This is far worse. And the fentanyl is the number one thing that's killing people across America. And it's being laced into everything, including marijuana. It is literally in everything. Even most of the coroners in this country say when they find drugs in a dead body, it's usually a combination of 2 to 3 different drugs. And sometimes it's those 2 to 3 different drugs plus alcohol. And, it's so bad. You notice they won't give you a daily count so much anymore like they did in the past. And even when they do give you a number, trust me, they are lowballing the number. They really are. And it tells you right there, they're deeply ashamed of what's going on. They are. This is something that has been spiraling out of control, literally, y'all, since 1999. And this is 2019 with no end in sight. Now, this story that came out just a few days ago from Al Jazeera goes over Mexico drugs. Fentanyl takes over heroin market, which I am not surprised. China is not doing a thing to control the fentanyl from coming in, and they're not going to. And I showed you that in the last China story I did. China said they ain't thinking about that. The mail is not priority to them. So with them having that kind of attitude, they have no chance of stopping the flow of all that fentanyl coming into the country. But let's get into this story. Let me go ahead and play this video.
These farmers are taking us up into the Sierra Madre Mountains to see a crop that sustained them for generations. These pretty flowers, glinting in the sunlight of a Sinaloa morning, are the source of much of the heroin stateside. It's made from these poppies gum, which the farmers sell on to traffickers. They say it's the only crop around here that pays.
There isn't enough land to be growing quantities of corn or tomatoes for profit. If everyone in the community did that, we wouldn't earn enough to buy shoes or clothes or school bags for the children.
Whatever the ethics of it, this has meant that communities in the hinterlands of Sinaloa could get by. Until the last 2 years, that is, when everything changed.
What we hear is that in the US there's some synthetic drug, and that means that our price has crashed.
He's talking about fentanyl, an opioid that's 50 times stronger than homegrown heroin. On top of that, it can be cooked up in 2 days, rather than the 5 months the farmers' crops take to grow. There's no wonder traffickers prefer it, and it's putting the farmers out of business. Their prices have dropped by 2/3, many migrating to the US. This situation isn't just playing out here, but in communities across Mexico. After all, poppy fields have been found in more than half of the country's states, and it's completely reasonable to think that it would be a good thing if these fields, after all, the starting point of heroin, did become a thing of the past. The only problem is that a lot of people in poor and marginalized areas of the country depend on them for work. If they're gone, many could be tempted deeper into organized crime, says Roman Lecour, who spent a year studying poppy farmers.
Some of the people that were into the poppy business had weapons for themselves and that are now offered being part of a criminal group, either as an employee, sicario, something like that. So you actually have people moving into something deeper, something probably even more dangerous.
There is, of course, an alternative. This could be a golden opportunity for the government to get farmers out of the business altogether. The president says he's working on it.
Many of them are being helped and will be helped, all of them. Where there was poppy farming, we can stimulate the production of corn and pay a better than fair price for the corn to compensate for the poppy.
Crop substitution is just one option. Another could be legalizing opium production for medical use. Whichever way, right now there's a small window of opportunity to bring these farmers out from the shadows. John Holman, Al Jazeera, Sinaloa.
Okay, family, please tell me what you think. Please leave your comment and subscribe. Don't forget to hit on the notification bell, and I'll see you on the next video. Peace, family. Ladies and gentlemen, This person actually is saying something that I agree with. The opioid plague is no mistake. I don't believe all of this was done by error. I really don't. It is the result of complicity and greed. I can't say that I don't agree with that. Okay, so now in September of 2015, an employee of Rochester Drug Cooperative, one of the largest pharmaceutical distributors in the country, was preparing to review a report on the opioid drugs her company had sold to one of its pharmacy customers. Given the buzz in the office, she was stealing herself as she put in an email to see what evil lies within, referring to evidence that her company highly addictive products were falling into the wrong hands. Despite the report, the company allegedly did nothing to stop the illicit flow of drugs. The email contacts can be found within a criminal complaint against RDC filed in federal courts this week. And you can get a similar sense of dread as you read through the complaint. Given earlier revelations about the opioid plague, we knew there would be ugly allegations. Yet, the evil alleged in the document is still staggering, adding to an argument that the opioid plague was no mistake. Instead, it is the result of shocking complicity and greed. And that's true. Because for every script that your doctor writes, he gets money for that. He or she gets money for that. They didn't care about the health of the people, they cared about filling their pockets. And the pharmaceutical company at one time said those drugs were not addictive. So that's why they were handing it out like candy. Not to us, of course. They didn't hand it out like candy to us, but you know, to white people. That's why they got so badly addicted to it. Remember, the doctor said they couldn't prescribe that much to us because we would start doing illegal things like selling the drugs, which we didn't do. Okay. But they did it, but we did not. We didn't go out there selling them drugs. But that was the belief that if they gave too much to us, we would do things that were illegal. But look who's addicted today more than anyone else. So there you go. So the doctors actually did us a favor. The criminal complaint is monumentous development. It offers the first chance to see an executive in the drug distribution industry go to prison for his role in our overdose crisis. Prosecutors charged a New York company and two of its executives with 3 crimes, including conspiracy to distribute controlled narcotics for non medical reasons. The company does not dispute the charges, nor has William Petruszewski, the company's former chief of compliance, who has agreed to plead guilty and cooperate with prosecutors. The company's former chief executive, Lawrence F. Dowd III, maintains his innocence. Okay, so these folks are going to jail for what has happened. But this definitely is not the norm, y'all. You got to consider how many of these places did these falsifying of drugs, giving drugs out for non-medical reasons and getting people hooked on these drugs, and they're still not in jail and probably never will go to jail. They probably never will. The handful of people that they are putting in jail, a few doctors here and there and nurses, that's not going to do nothing to stop this plague. It's not enough. It's really a sparse amount of people that they have put in jail. So how is that going to really make a difference out here? It's not. It's not. They're going to grab up a few people and try to hold them accountable. All right, so this Lawrence F. Dowd III maintains his innocence, and his lawyer told the Post that he will fight these false charges to his last breath. So this is one of many of these distribution centers that you will see in the near future getting sued, y'all. But it certainly will not stop the addiction that's going on out here at all. But please tell me what you think, ladies and gentlemen. Please leave your comment and subscribe. Don't forget to hit on the notification bell, and I'll see you on the next video. Peace, family. These people are something else, y'all. Now they're trying to cite religious freedom as an excuse for their legalized crack house, also known as a safe injection site for those that do illegal drugs. So many of you already know this is just a location that your average run-of-the-mill opioid addict can go to and do their drugs in front of a medical professional. So if they overdose or anything happens, they can hit them up with some Narcan right there at the legalized crack house. It's amazing how today's junkies have amnesty. If you call the police because they overdose, nobody goes to jail. They just get taken to the hospital and released from there. And they are given all kinds of support systems. There are even articles out here, ladies and gentlemen, with the police visiting them and making sure they're okay after an overdose. I don't recall that happening during the crack epidemic. Do any of you remember this? Let me know in the comment section. There was zero concern about the crack addict and them overdosing. Everybody went to jail, mass incarceration. That was the only thing that was offered to the community back then. I'm going to go ahead and play this article. There's some audio to this article in NPR, and this came out April 13th, 2019.
The U.S. Justice Department and a Philadelphia nonprofit are locked in a legal battle. The nonprofit is called Safe House. They want to open a facility where people can inject drugs under supervision. Prosecutors took legal action to try to block the site from opening. Now, Safe House has filed a countersuit against the Trump administration. Bobby Allen of member station WHYY reports.
In Philadelphia, about 3 people a day die from drug overdoses. The severity of the problem is why public officials here are supporting opening a space for people to use illegal opioids under medical supervision.
I'm a public health official whose job it is to prevent needless deaths.
Philadelphia Health Commissioner Tom Farley.
The evidence is clear that these facilities save lives, while at the same time serving as an entryway into drug treatment.
The idea is to allow people to bring their own drugs, use them while being monitored by nurses and other medical staff, then offer access to treatment, legal counseling, housing, and other social services. Supervised injection sites have operated in Canada, Europe, and Australia, but one has never officially opened in the United States. U.S. Attorney for the Philadelphia area, Bill McSwain, wants to keep it that way.
These are folks who have good intentions, but we think that this step of opening an injection site is a step that crosses the line.
The folks McSwain is talking about are the members of Safe House, the nonprofit hoping to launch the country's first injection site this year. So McSwain and the Trump administration sued Safe House. They cite so-called crack house laws that make it a crime to own a property where drugs are being used. In response, Safe House has now assembled a team of 12 pro bono lawyers and has countersued the government. Safe House lawyers say those laws from the 1980s were never meant to apply to a medical facility in the midst of a modern public health crisis. Lawyer Rhonda Goldfein is the vice president of Safe House.
If we feel like this is in our power to make this happen or to go down trying, we owe it to all those we've lost.
Advocates compare the injection site's life-saving potential to how syringe exchanges helped reduce deaths during the AIDS epidemic. Officials in Massachusetts, New York, Colorado, and California have discussed similar injection site proposals, but because of the legal uncertainty, most of those efforts have stalled. The judge's ruling could reverberate around the country, either paving the way for injection sites or McSwain hopes permanently blocking them.
This is something that I think that people will be looking at as, in a sense, a test case that could have implications in other districts.
Yet McSwain says there's a big difference between handing out clean needles and inviting people in a space to use their own drugs. In Philadelphia's Kensington neighborhood, opioid user Joe has a different perspective. We're only using Joe's first name since he uses illegal drugs. He's 35, from New Jersey, and used to sell mortgage loans for a living. Now he's in the throes of addiction.
It's sad to see the people that are dying, man. I've had so many friends die and so many people that are on this that it's just they're not the same person. And I'm not the same person, and we're not the same people.
Joe is standing around discarded needles right across the street from a building Safe House is considering moving into. It's by a noisy train track platform. Joe says he almost died from an opioid overdose. He says if the injection site opens, he'd quickly become one of its clients.
Using in front of the medical staff and knowing that someone's educated and trained and they're going to get the proper treatment if they need it.
Versus, Joe says, using in abandoned buildings, alleyways, and fast food bathrooms, where often a fatal overdose can happen without anybody watching. For NPR News, I'm Bobby Allen in Philadelphia.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, isn't it amazing? They have set up a site for people to do illicit drugs, powerful narcotics that kill people every day. But if you get caught with a little bit of weed, you are going to jail. They are still mass incarcerating Black men over some damn weed. In the meantime, these opioid addicts can go clear across town with illegal drugs and go sit in front of someone and do their illegal drugs, and they are safe. But you, primarily Black man, are unsafe walking around with some weed, a teeny bit of weed. Just try to wrap your mind around that. But this is what America does. It does the same thing we have seen done in this rigged up system. So now these folks can go to a safe injection site and there is no cop that's going to arrest them. Please tell me what you think, ladies and gentlemen. Please leave your comment and subscribe. Don't forget to hit on the notification bell, and I'll see you on the next video. Peace, family. Ladies and gentlemen, you know the situation with opioids in the city of Philadelphia is so bad. They decided to open up what's called a safe injection site. This is a location where people can go and do their illegal drugs in front of a medical professional. So if something happens to them, they can revive them and make sure they don't overdose. We know they definitely did not have anything like this during the crack epidemic. I mean, let's face it, we know why they're setting up these injection sites. Well, Philadelphia is running into a bit of a problem with the feds. So this came out April 4th, 2019. Opioid plague in Philadelphia pits feds against effort to open first in the nation drug injection site. And we know there's similar ones to it. I mean, they've been doing this forever. So, in other words, a legalized crack house for the opioid drug users. The U.S. attorney in Philadelphia and a high-powered nonprofit are embroiled in a legal battle over the organization's plan to open a supervised drug injection site to try to rein in the city's raging opioid plague. And it's bad in Pennsylvania. See, that's why they were doing things like giving out free Narcan to everybody, because it is so overwhelming for the police and EMT and fire department. They are now trying to get the public involved in helping, which I don't think is a safe thing to do, but that's my opinion. U.S. Attorney William McSwain said Wednesday that his decision to challenge the effort by the group Safe House to open the first in the nation drug injection site was a matter of following federal law, normalizing the use of deadly drugs like heroin and fentanyl is not the answer to solving the plague, Swain said. The issue is especially critical for Philadelphia, which has the highest opioid death rate of any U.S. city. Yeah. When the governor declared a state of an emergency, it was raging across the entire state. That's how bad it was. It was no county in Pennsylvania that was not hit by this opioid plague. Okay, so the issue is especially critical for Philadelphia, which has the highest opioid death rate of any large U.S. city, with more than 1,000 deaths per year, nearly 4 times its homicide rate. I mean, yeah, this thing has surpassed homicides, car accidents, I mean, everything. Everything. That's why I chuckle when these trolls keep coming around talking about black on black crime. There are more people dying on opioids than black on black crime. And that's really the response you should be giving them from now on. As soon as they come talking that black people are violent and black on black crime, you tell them to do something about their opioid plague, and more people die on opioids than people that die at the hands of other black people. It's a fact. Philadelphia Health Commissioner Thomas Farley has called the opioid plague the largest public health crisis this city has seen in a century. Remember, it was a century ago when the opium epidemic was going on in the country. So this is like really a second wave. But remember, drug addiction in America has never seen a break. It just switches from drug to drug, and the death rate continues to go up. In its response to the federal effort to block the center, Safe House argued in court papers filed Wednesday that it would not be providing illicit drugs to its client, but instead would provide sterile equipment counseling, and access to medical care. That sounds like an excuse, y'all. So they still have to physically come there with the illicit drug. You know, so if this is what they're going to do, the next time you get caught with drugs, people in the black community, tell them you're on your way to a safe house to do your drugs. I mean, if you're going to let the opioid addicts get away with this, you should let everybody get away with it. Why not just let anybody come there and do the drug of their choice in front of you? Why are you limiting it to opioids? I can tell you why. Because the face of the opioid addict looks like theirs, Caucasian. That's why. This is why they have given amnesty to the opioid addict, but no one else. How come they won't give amnesty for weed? They got all kinds of people locked up in prison around America for non-violent drug offenses because they can't get you in there any other way. Why not give them amnesty? See, because there's a certain kind of prisoner they want in there to do that labor. Just not their people. Their people get amnesty in safe houses. Our people get non-violent drug offenses and long prison sentences to get that corporation work done. But these are the same folks that want you to tell, they want to get in your face and tell you to trust their system. Your system don't deserve any trust. This intervention will not solve the opioid plague, but it will provide a critical life raft, Safe House told the court. It notes that more than 30 years, not a single fatal overdose has been reported at any of the 120 similar sites that operate openly worldwide. For its part, the federal prosecutors argue that safe houses conduct is prohibited by federal law, and that it does not matter that Safe House claims good intentions in fighting the opioid plague. Safe House, whose board includes such heavy hitters as former Pennsylvania Governor Ed Rendell, is trying to raise almost $2 million to open the injection site is this spring. So they want to open it, and it's going to be in downtown. Wow. I just can't believe this is going on. A legalized crack house. So they want to open it this spring in an open air drug buying area north of downtown. So they want to purposely put this site in an area that has heavy drug activity. Now, the Philadelphia District Attorney Larry Krashner says the aim was to provide aid at a center for people who face serious medical problems because of their drug use. Wow. I mean, crack was really bad over in the city of Philadelphia back in the day, y'all. I didn't hear anybody come out for a crack addict. Nobody came out for them. They went straight to jail. The only thing they would show you back then was them using the battery ram to bust down the door. And then once they got in the house, what they would do is if there were any dogs or cats or any animals in the house, they'd shoot them in the head. And if crack was found in the house, it doesn't matter if your grandma was in the house at the time, everybody got arrested. That's how they handled the crack epidemic. But for opioids, they want to open up a safe injection site so they can bring their illegal, illicit drugs, sit in front of somebody and do their drugs and not go to jail. We haven't seen them round up opioid addicts and put them in jail at the same level that they did during the crack epidemic. If somebody is in a house full of people and they overdose on opioids, they go in that house and help that person with Narcan. They don't arrest everybody in the house just like the crack epidemic when they did that. I mean, they are just blatant with the double standards. We are not going to prosecute people who are trying to stop people from dying, Krasner said after Swain's announcement. We had 1,200 people die last year. I think it is inexcusable to play politics with their lives. Safe Houses. Safe House says its staff will include medically trained professionals, social workers, case managers, and certified specialists in recovery techniques. The staff will be trained in CPR and the administration of naloxone, a medication designed to, despite federal opposition, Rendell said. There is no harm that comes from a facility like this. And if we save even on the low side 25 lives, isn't that worth it? No. 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 Because you know what? The whole thing should be scrapped, y'all. Why? How are you justifying saving opioid addicts, but you're still jailing people for drug addiction that are using non-opioids? You know, that's an argument that should be raised. They are putting a high amount of black men in prison for weed, but you are keeping somebody on a heavy narcotic out here in the public for you want them to be free. You want a narcotic addict to be free and someone on weed to go to jail. I tell you what, this is definitely an upside down world. And this is a thing that really should be challenged. How do you label opioids as public health, but all other drugs that people are using out here, you are not labeling as public health? How are you getting away with that? That's what I want to know. Health, but the other drugs that people are doing out here, they should go to jail for that. That concept alone should be challenged all across this country. You know, ladies and gentlemen, just understand, when the face of the addict change, the whole attitude towards drug addiction suddenly changed in America. They were not feeling this way during the crack epidemic, and the crack epidemic really was not that long ago. But they expect us to feel something for these addicts, get out here with our Narcan and run around in the public saving them. You didn't save us. You jailed everybody. But we know why you're doing it. And I hope these sites get shut down, because it is just another sign of preferential treatment in America. That's all the safe injection house is. Preferential treatment. And you don't deserve it. Please tell me what you think, ladies and gentlemen, about this story. Please leave your comment and subscribe. Don't forget to hit on the notification bell. and I'll see you on the next video. Peace, family. From it, but not quite at the same high rate. And another thing that was prevalent was the fentanyl was rising and spreading across the country. Now, recently, China said they got other things they have to do, in their country. They don't have time to worry about all of these fentanyl deaths that's happening in the US. So they are literally not doing anything to stop the fentanyl from coming in. They don't care. They don't care. They said they got to focus on their own people. So here we are today. And what do we see? We see the same thing. White males leading in opioid deaths. This came out in Breitbart, March 25th, 2019. Feds, opioid plague, killing young white men more than any other Americans. The nation's opioid plague is killing young white American men more than any other demographic group, new research from the federal government reveals. The latest report from the Center for Disease Control finds that young white men in the United States are dying at the fastest rate from fentanyl, the deadly opioid where 1 pound can kill more than 220,000 people. Yes, it don't take much fentanyl to kill a lot of people. Between 2011 and 2016, fentanyl overdose deaths increased more than 1,000%. And the thing is, it has increased mostly among white men. Now, if a lot of people across many demographics were doing a lot of these drugs, wouldn't it be a mixture of people? But that's not what we're seeing. In 2011, for example, there were about 1,660 Americans who died of fentanyl overdoses. Fast forward to 2016, when there were 18,335 Americans who died from fentanyl. And you can see on the chart how it increased from 2011, 2012, 13, 2014, 2015, and 2016. That's a significant jump. And that's really not a long period of time when you really look at the scheme of things. The opioid plague, though, is not impacting all states and demographic groups in the country equally, the CDC report finds. White Americans have a significantly higher rate of dying from fentanyl than any other racial group in the US. For instance, non-Hispanic whites' rate of fentanyl overdose deaths increased in early 110% between 2013 and 2016. So that's a 3-year period. In 2016, close to 8 out of every 100,000 non-Hispanic whites died from fentanyl overdoses, more than 3 times the rate of Hispanic Americans dying from fentanyl. Black Americans followed whites with a rate about 5.6 deaths for every 100,000, followed by Hispanics at 2.5 per 100,000. But you know what? They're right. It really depends on what part of the country. Now, I come from Pennsylvania originally, and over there, the Hispanics are dying at a higher rate than even the white people. So it really depends on what part of the country and the demographics, of course. American men are dying from fentanyl at nearly 3 times the rate of American women. In 2016, there were almost 9 men who died of fentanyl for every 100,000, compared that to the roughly 3 women who died of fentanyl for every 100,000 women. For young people, the opioid plague is even worse. The CDC finds that between 2011 and 2016, the number of fentanyl overdose deaths for Americans aged 25 years old to 34 years old increased 100% every year. Wow, that's a lot. For Americans aged 15 to 24, the number of fentanyl overdose deaths increased almost 94% every year between 2011 and 2016. No wonder why they are talking about Narcan in public schools now. Now you can understand why. Out of every 100,000 young Americans in 2016, there were 13.4 who died of fentanyl overdoses. For every 100,000 Americans aged 34 to 44 years old, there were 11.4 who died of fentanyl overdoses. And you can see the chart here pertaining to age. Wow. So the biggest group is 25 to 34, then 35 to 44, 45 to 54. And look like the 15 to 24 and 55 to 64 are neck and neck right here. And then it's much lower for the people 65 and older. The rise in fentanyl overdose is concentrated largely in 3 regions of the country, which includes Connecticut, Maine, Massachusetts, New Hampshire, Rhode Island, Vermont, New Jersey, New York, Delaware, Washington, D.C., Maryland, Pennsylvania, Virginia, West Virginia, Illinois, Indiana, Minnesota, Michigan, Ohio, Wisconsin. Wow. In the most northeast states of the country, the number of Americans dying from fentanyl overdoses increased almost 11.4% every year between 2011 and 2016. In the New Jersey and New York area, fentanyl deaths increased 111% every year over the last 6 years. And in the Delaware, D.C., Maryland, Pennsylvania, Virginia, West Virginia region, fentanyl deaths increased about 104% every year. Yeah, that's true. I can tell you here in my state, it's going through the roof. It's going crazy in the Northeast. I do agree with this part of the article. Absolutely. The American Midwest saw a 102% increase every year between 2011 and 2016 of fentanyl overdose deaths. Last year, the Immigration and Customs Enforcement ICE agency seized enough fentanyl to kill nearly twice the U.S. population, Breitbart News reported. And for the first time, Americans are now more likely to die from an accidental opioid overdose than from injuries in a car crash. Yes, and even homicides. It surpasses homicides too. I mean, this is a mess that America really is in right now. And they are just really helpless in stopping this thing, especially the way that they're doing it. Drug overdoses in 2017 killed an unprecedented 72,287 U.S. residents, nearly 3 times the number of individuals killed by global terrorism, and 10,000 more than the number of Americans killed in the Vietnam War. And ladies and gentlemen, I always want you to remember when they give you this 72,000 number, that's based on only 22 states. The other states in the US do not report their numbers to the CDC. So you're really not getting the full picture of how bad it is. Nearly 50,000 of those deadly overdoses were caused by either heroin or fentanyl. So no matter what efforts your agencies like the DEA and ICE and even your postal service make, if China is not going to do anything on their end, all of this is in vain. It really is. This nightmare is still in full effect when it comes down to drug deaths in America. But please tell me what you think, ladies and gentlemen. Please leave your comment and subscribe. Don't forget to hit on the notification bell, and I'll see you on the next video. Peace, family. Overdoses are going through the roof in America, and there's nothing they can do to stop this train wreck. This came out in Vice News, March 21st, 2019. You've probably heard by now that fentanyl is the deadliest drug in the United States. But a new study released Thursday by the National Center for Health Statistics offered yet another grim reminder. Deaths caused by the powerful synthetic opioid doubled every year from 2013 to 2016, soaring 18,300 fatal overdoses from under 2,000 in a single year. Now, America has a tendency of undercounting numbers. So you can best believe any figures that I'm giving to you are way higher. It keeps getting worse. Preliminary data from 2017 shows more than 28,000 deaths involving fentanyl and other synthetic opioids. That's out of more than 70,000 total fatal deaths from the fentanyl synthetic, which is higher than the death toll for HIV at the peak of the epidemic. Trump, among others, has started to pay attention. The White House is touting the administration's ongoing efforts to reduce the flow of illicit fentanyl from China and Mexico. But the latest report on fentanyl includes a statistic that suggests the problem is actually worse and more complicated than Americans have been led to believe, and that is the truth. Remember, the CDC only publishes numbers from 22 states, not all 50. So any figures that come out of there will be an undercount. Just understand that. So this chart shows you from 2000 all the way to 2017, the amount of people that have died from a fentanyl overdose. While synthetic opioids kill more Americans than any other type of drug, in 2016, nearly 70% of fentanyl deaths also involve one or more other substances. In fact, when I did those stories in the past from the coroner's office, they said it is very rare to find one drug in their system. Usually it's a combination of 2 or even 3 drugs on top of that alcohol. But for somebody to die from one drug only, they said actually that's unusual. More common for it to be more drugs in their system. Deaths caused by other drugs have not skyrocketed to the same degree as fentanyl, but overdose rates for both heroin and meth more than tripled from 2011 to 2016. And if you kept up with my videos, you would have known that because I've done the meth videos last year. Sorry about that, y'all. Always getting disrupted. You know how it always goes. Okay. So cocaine use is also on the rise. And, a lot of people that do cocaine are also dying because they are mixing fentanyl into the cocaine, y'all. And it's not like when you buy this stuff from your drug dealer, they're going to tell you what's in it. So a lot of places where they do heavy cocaine, there's also a lot of fatalities with that as well. And it is consistently, remained the second or third leading cause of fatal overdoses after opioids. So, let's face it, it's tons of drug use in America, always have been. But see, on death certificates, they only let you specify one cause of death. So in many cases, if there's more than one drug that caused your overdose, it may not be on the death certificate. In fact, it won't be. The National Center for Health Statistics report relies on information from death certificates, which don't always specify the type of drug that caused the overdose. Previous research, including a 2017 study from the University of Virginia, has estimated that opioid mortality rates might actually be 24% higher than stated in official records due to the incomplete reporting on death certificates. Absolutely. Reporting those death certificates is not mandatory. So whatever number they give you, just always know it's more likely an undercount. Marianne Rose Spencer, a statistician with the National Center for Health Statistics, told Vice News that the overdose totals in her recent fentanyl report should be considered the minimum number based on the available data. The problem, she explained, is that every state has its own way of testing for the drug. Well, that's pretty bad, being that they're not uniformed. And, tests are always going to have some kind of flaw in them. So, all you can do is take a guesstimation at this point. It's improving over time, Spencer said. It's getting more specific. They're not just writing polydrug overdose. They're actually writing what the drugs are. While the national focus remains on fentanyl, some experts have characterized the current opioid crisis as a triple wave epidemic. So, ladies and gentlemen, I did an article about a year ago where it said that this drug addiction has literally gone on for 40 years, where one drug will drop off, another one will pick up. So it's always been a continuous flow of drug overdoses for the last 40 years. That began with the rise of prescription painkillers in the early 2000s when authorities cracked down on pill mills. Users switched to heroin. Yeah, a lot of them switched to heroin because they could no longer get prescriptions from their doctors. And to meet the growing demand for heroin, illicit drug traffickers turned to fentanyl, which is more potent and cheaper to manufacture. Fentanyl is also mixed with powdered heroin, and law enforcement has warned users about fentanyl-laced cocaine, which may contribute to both the death toll and the increased rate of deaths involving more than one drug. Absolutely. Okay. Trump has claimed that the solution is building a wall along the US-Mexico border. And no, it's not the solution because, I followed some of the El Chapo trial and they said, his, the ones that smuggled the drugs said they don't even go near that wall. They don't go near the wall. They bring that drug, the drugs in through tractor trailers. They use boats. They use submarines. They use underground tunnels. They said there are hundreds during that trial. They said there are hundreds of underground tunnels that lead from Mexico all the way into Arizona. So they don't need the wall to traffic drugs. So for Trump to keep saying these things, it's just ridiculous. That's not true. Okay, so attempts to crack down on the drug supply have repeatedly failed, and it will continue to fail, ladies and gentlemen. And also failed to take into account how opioid users often combine their drug of choice with alcohol and benzos, such as Xanax. Okay, which can be obtained legally in the US. I mean, even the Chinese said there's no drug that they can't make a synthetic form of. Those drugs are always going to be on the streets. I mean, no doubt about it. Now, they have drug parties, y'all. And at these drug parties, what they do is they mix all these different pills up and have what they call a multi-drug cocktail. And that's how they get high. And all you got to do is just go out there and look up drug parties. They have them all the time, all over the country. And for the teenagers, a lot of times what they do is they'll steal drugs out of the medicine cabinet, often drugs that belong to their parents, and they will use multiple drugs, mix them together, and have a drug cocktail. So multi-drug cocktails greatly increase the risk of overdose. Leo Bileski, an associate professor of law and health sciences at Northeastern University, said the latest statistics are probably just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to understanding how opioid deaths are linked to other drugs. As a result, he said the US is still failing to utilize harm reduction and other solutions that could actually reduce overdoses. They've been talking about ways to reduce, drugs from coming into the country, overdoses, access to the drug, and all of it has failed. All of it has failed. Now, remember what I said, the DEA has been around for over 50 years. And over a 50-year period, they have never stopped drugs from coming into this country. So how effective is that organization? Okay, because we use this framing of the culprit being opioids, it shaped the response and it actually focused the attention of officials and policymakers, which are lawmakers, on just that one element. And as a result, we got to where we are today, which is falling apart from all of the overdoses. It was the wrong diagnosis. We diagnosed the problem incorrectly. It was not an opioid problem. It was a problem of polysubstance use and that the problem still exists. And it will always exist, y'all. It's going to exist in 2020, 2021, 2022, and so on and so on. It's not going anywhere. They don't know what to do. They never seen drug addiction at the level that we see today. Yes, they had eras, and I showed you in past articles how 100 years ago they had an opium problem in America, and they don't know how to overcome this. You know, how do you overcome it when you got millions of people taking opioids in America, and people are selling their pills? You got all of this fentanyl coming in from China and across the Mexican border and Canada. You can't keep that mess out of here. You can't. So I wish them the best of luck. All of your best effort will still lead you to a bad drug problem. Period. Please leave your comment and subscribe. Don't forget to hit on the notification bell, and I'll see you on the next video. Peace, family. Ladies and gentlemen, look like New Jersey is 1 week away from legalizing marijuana in the state. And, you know, what I like about this bill is they take it to the point where people can get their records expunged, or if folks are behind bars on weed charges, those folks will be released. And I think that's the right thing to do. I think it's insane for states to have legalized marijuana and your cops are still going around arresting people. It just goes to show you how desperate they are to keep people behind bars doing all that prison slave work. But let's get into this article from NewJersey.com. Legal weed for New Jersey takes a huge step forward. We now expect final votes next week. Okay, so New Jersey on Monday took another big step towards legalizing recreational marijuana as 2 state legislative committees approve a new weed bill, setting up historic votes in the state legislature next week. The committee took hours to vote after lawmakers wrangled over last-minute changes to the measure behind closed doors at the State House in Trenton. So they took a vote, and it came out 6-4, and this is in favor of marijuana. Just after 8 p.m., the State Assembly Appropriation Committee approved it by a 6-2 vote with 2 abstentions about an hour earlier. Lawmakers also approved a separate expungement bill and a medical marijuana expansion bill, which I like. I like the fact that the state is not being hypocritical like many of the other states. The people that have these marijuana charges on them can now get that completely off of their record. That's the right thing to do. The full Senate and Assembly must now pass the measure before Governor Phil Murphy, who is very pro marijuana for the state. In fact, that's what he ran on during his campaign. A major proponent of legal pot can sign it, but the votes to secure legalization remain exclusive. As of Monday afternoon, leaders were still a handful of votes short. What's needed, they'll get the votes because too many people want it. Murphy, who has criticized in recent days for not doing enough to whip votes, ramped up his calls to lawmakers on Monday in an effort to swing some votes. 2 sources with knowledge of the situation told New Jersey Advanced Media. Democratic governor made dozens of calls throughout the day. A senior administration official said Monday's action set the stage for a flurry of other phone calls and discussions over the next several days before the possible final vote, which is planned for March 25th. If the Senate and Assembly fall short that day, it's possible another vote may not be attempted until late in the year. The bill would legalize the possession and personal use of marijuana for people in New Jersey who are at least 21 years old, while also establishing a regulated industry. You know, trust me, it's going to pass. New Jersey wants all of the money that comes. You know, they make over $1 billion a year off of the marijuana. They're not passing that up. Trust me, they're not. The measure would allow people with low-level marijuana convictions to have those charges cleared from their record, which are a lot of people, Black people here in New Jersey got those kind of charges. And like I said, if these folks ran a good criminal justice system, you wouldn't even be bothering people over such petty things. When you got to worry about petty things, that means you have nothing on that person. Okay. So let me get back to this. Marijuana supporters and opponents milled around the State House all day Monday, awaiting an opportunity to testify on the bills. But they did not get the chance to speak before the Senate committee, which canceled testimony from the public. The Assembly limited testimony to a few minutes per speaker. During the Assembly committee hearing, Gregory Quinlan of the Center for Garden State Families said the bill is wrong for the state and that he was bothered by how Monday unfolded with the backroom conversations and late amendments. How do I testify on a bill that's on the amendment I haven't seen? Quinlan asked the panel. That's disrespectful to us. A handful of the most active cannabis supporters said they were generally happy with the updated legalization bill, which was revealed last week. Now, one thing I do have to say too, New Jersey also have on the table that, you know, minorities or African Americans in the state have to be part of getting and obtaining those businesses. So there's a lot of people that talk inclusive, but they really don't mean it. They really don't want us in that business. That's why you don't see us in the business. Some states have the wording, you know, in their law, but when you look at who has the businesses, none of us have those businesses, okay? You could probably count on your one hand how many Black people have marijuana businesses in the state. It's a disgrace how many of these people are still trying to shut us out, but use the wording in the law as if that's not what they're doing. But that is absolutely what they're doing. When you see who have these cannabis businesses, we're being shut out. You know, and they're just using legal terms to look like they're not discriminating when they absolutely are. Same stuff we've been seeing all along. Okay, so they're still having testimony over the bill, but many expect the measure to pass and the governor to sign it, and this will go into effect immediately once it's signed. So, and they said if the measure don't pass, then it will come up again in November. So I believe it will pass because there is too many people that's for this. And like I said, the state of New Jersey is not going to pass up all of that revenue that's going to come in from having legalized marijuana. But please tell me what you think, ladies and gentlemen. Please leave your comment and subscribe. Don't forget to hit on the notification bell. and I will see you on the next video. Peace, family. Ladies and gentlemen, it looks like the majority of employers here in America have been impacted by opioids. This came out in Faculty Executive, March 18th, 2019. 75% of employers say opioid use impact their workplace. Wow. You know, if I don't go through these articles, I can tell you mainstream media will never tell you how bad this thing really is. It's bad. Even though 75% of US employers have been directly affected by opioids, only 17% feel extremely well prepared to deal with the issue, according to a new survey by the National Safety Council. In recognition of Poison Prevention Week, 38% have experienced absenteeism and impaired worker performance, while 31% have had an overdose, arrest, near miss, or injury in their workplace due to employee opioid use. The opioid plague is truly encompassing nearly every aspect of American lives. Today's survey confirms that the number one cause of preventable death is not just taking its toll on our home lives, but companies across the country are also grappling with the impact of this plague, said Nick Smith, interim president and CEO of the National Safety Council. If there's a silver lining, it's that we have an opportunity to gain the attention and resources of American businesses to combat this societal scourge. NSC is committed to working with employers to define best practices and support a two-pronged approach of confronting the crisis in our homes and workplaces. For the first time in U.S. history, a person is more likely to die from an accidental opioid overdose than from a motor vehicle crash, according to NSC calculations. In fact, workplace overdose deaths involve drugs or alcohol have increased by at least 25% for 5 consecutive years. Wow. Now, I've seen people drunk on jobs, you know. Other key findings from the survey include employers are more concerned about hiring qualified workers, employee benefit costs, and worker compensation costs than they are about employee use of legal prescription opioids or illicit use, sales of opioid. However, opioid misuse, legal or illicit, can impact all of their other employers, citing more concern. 86% of employers believe taking opioids, even as prescribed, can impair job performance. Yet only 60% have policies in place requiring employees to notify their employers when they're using a prescription opioids. Only half of employers are very confident that they have the appropriate HR policies and resources to deal with opioid use and misuse in the workplace. 79% are not very confident that individual employees can spot warning signs of opioid use. Encouragingly, 41% of employers have returned an employee to work after he or she receives treatment for misusing prescription opioids. NSC provides a free prescription employer kit to help employers manage opioid use at work based on additional survey results. NSC intends to add components to the kit, including a robust workplace policy. A copy of the survey's questionnaire and full methodology is available here. All right, so I know that's far more widespread because, you got a lot of people out here that cannot even pass pre-employment drug test. And I've done numerous videos on that in the past where employers have been complaining that they cannot find a qualified candidate because people are just failing the drug testing left and right. And that's been an ongoing problem for several years now. So you have so many openings across the country that are going unfilled. But I'm not surprised. But that number is pretty large, 75%. That's a pretty large number of people having folks on the job doing both prescribed meds and illegal illicit meds. Now, I've done stories in the past also on people dying on their job from drug overdose. A couple of teachers went in the bathroom to do their drugs and they end up dying in the bathroom stall. And other jobs, reporting employees just collapsing and dying on the job. And I know that was something that was really on the rise, especially back in 2017. So this drug addiction is still going strong, y'all. But please tell me what you think. Ladies and gentlemen, please leave your comment and subscribe. Don't forget to hit on the notification bell, and I'll see you on the next video. Peace, family. Ladies and gentlemen, this came out on blast.com, and this is Mama June from the show that used to be on called Honey Boo Boo. I never watched that show. I didn't get it. I didn't watch it, when it was going strong. I was not watching it at all. I would just see things about it here and there online. I don't even know what the show was about. But anyway, Mama June, and this woman had to be the ugliest woman to ever be on TV. I'm serious. I mean, that's a damn donkey face right there. So Mama June officially charged over crack cocaine arrest, faces 1 year in jail. Wow. Is that a smile? All right, let's go. All right, so this came out March 18th, 2019. Mama June may be tapping the next season of her reality show behind bars because she is facing hard time after getting arrested for the alleged possession of crack cocaine. Officials in Macon County, Alabama, tell The Blast the reality star was charged Monday morning over an arrest that occurred last Wednesday following an alleged domestic dispute between the star and her boyfriend, Gino Doke. Okay. We're told Shannon was charged with a felony for possession of a controlled substance and a misdemeanor for possession of drug paraphernalia. The controlled substance is listed as crack cocaine, and the paraphernalia was noted by officials as showing evidence of crack cocaine residue and was determined to be recently used. We're told the reality star faces up to a year in jail on the felony drug charge, and a date for her arraignment has not been set. Meanwhile, the newest season of Shannon's reality show, Mama June, From Not to Hot, what? From Not to Hot? Huh? Premiered last Friday on WE TV. The network has not yet commented on their relationship with Shannon or the future of her reality show. Y'all need to stop, okay? y'all need to stop. Wow. Wow. Look at that couple. Please leave your comment and subscribe. And don't forget to hit on the notification bell. And I'll see you on the next video. More like From Not to Not. Peace, family. Ladies and gentlemen, the schools across America are now training for student overdoses nationwide. This includes your school nurse, teaching staff, and other personnel will now be training, and you see the dummies right there, on how to administer naloxone, mouth-to-mouth resuscitation using defibrillators, and allergy remedying EpiPens, because students are stealing their parents' drugs and overdosing. You know, I don't know about you. I would never want my kid to see somebody overdosing at school. I think that is way too traumatic on children. But this is becoming another standard because of all of the drug addiction. And according to the experts, they expect this opioid plague to rage on with no end in sight. So now you have schools bringing in medical equipment, life-size dummies, and they are learning what to do in the event that they see someone overdosing. So they're telling them after calling 911, they want to try doing mouth to mouth and press the Evzio auto injector, which it looks like, here it is right here. And what you do is you press it up against the outer thigh to administer the naloxone. I mean, I just think this is really a shame when you have to resort to this kind of measure in schools. You know, usually the worst thing that happens, you get sick, you got to go to the school nurse, and that's it. You may have to go home or they send you back to class. But this is ridiculous. So they train you on how to use all of these things, and they let you know exactly what happens after the naloxone is administered. The patient tends to spring up, confused, agitated. So part of the training involves preparing teaching staff for this shock. They will get tips on spotting signs of an overdose in the first place. You know what? If I was a teacher, I don't know if I would want to teach and have that kind of responsibility. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. Alabama's Department of Education says the training has been designed to help teaching staff get over their fear factor associated with an emergency. The injectors can't do any harm, they said. Well, authorities said no child is known to have overdosed in Alabama's school system, but they fear it could be a matter of time. They said they want it to be proactive rather than wait for the first tragedy. So right now they're saying this is something that they're doing in a variety of schools across the country, but at this time it is non-mandatory that every high school in the state do this. And I'm sure it's the cost. I'm sure it's very expensive to do it statewide. So, now, this person is just talking about they had a wake-up call when one of the older students were rushed to the hospital after taking prescription drugs in the classroom. So, Alabama won't wait. So the state attorney general was talking about this on their local news. So I don't know how I feel about this, y'all. You know, it's a shame all of this drug use is going on. And now, you know, he's on the same thing as Pennsylvania. Everybody should carry naloxone. And remember, the U.S. Attorney General gave a speech last year instructing all Americans who are at risk of overdose and those close to them to carry naloxone, you know. And I think eventually you're going to hear more and more states making the request that citizens carry naloxone because, I mean, they are literally wearing the police departments, the fire departments, the EMTs thin. You know, it is just so much of them going out from call to call, and the majority of the calls are for drug overdose. The last time I was up at the hospital with my son, I was just talking briefly with the nurse when she came in the room, and she said the weekend, starting from Friday night all the way through Sunday, they have nothing but a ton of drug overdoses coming into the hospital. It's just one after the next. I guess people partying on the weekend and they just want to get high and end up at the hospital emergency room. But she said this is probably the worst she's ever seen it. Okay, Americans urged to carry opioid antidote. Naloxone is already kept on hand in a variety of community centers and police stations and, you know, pharmacies as well. It also comes as a nasal spray, often under the brand of Narcan. And that's what they're showing you here in the picture. I actually seen it in the store, the pharmacy, the last time I was there. So is Florida next? So, you know, I'm sure this is going to spread nationwide. It won't be just Alabama and Florida. It's going to be so many states. It's just so many people overdosing these days. But please tell me what you think, ladies and gentlemen. Please leave your comment and subscribe. Don't forget to hit on the notification bell, and I'll see you on the next video. Peace, family. Ladies and gentlemen, some of you might remember I did a couple of videos on China and how the fentanyl is coming into the US, and the last time Trump saw the leader of China, he said he agreed to, try to stop more of this fentanyl from reaching the US. And as you can see, nothing has happened. And I was saying China ain't going to do nothing about how this fentanyl is flowing in. They really don't care. They don't care about these people dropping dead from fentanyl. And they don't care about shipping the drug over here. That's why it's still happening. And the deaths are not slowing down at all. So this came out in the Washington Post. Why is China refusing to stop the flow of fentanyl? All right. As Washington and Beijing lumber towards a deal on trade, a look at why little has changed on another key front is an important reminder that agreements with China often follow a predictable pattern. Big breakthrough, maybe even a Rose Garden announcement followed by not much. A few days after the United States and China announced in December that Chinese President Xi Jinping had vowed that his country would stem the supply of the powerful opioid fentanyl flowing into the United States. President Trump tweeted that if China cracks down on this horror drug using the death penalty for distributors and pushers, the results will be incredible. Well, guess what? You won't be seeing those incredible results. And China is not going to crack down on nothing. This is pretty much the norm. Well, so far the results have been far from incredible. In fact, all indicators are that there have been no results. Nothing has changed since December 1st, said a senior administration official who was involved in talks and spoke on the condition of so he just spoke anonymously about this whole thing. That's all. Fentanyl and its many analogs continue to flood the United States. On January 31st, U.S. Customs and Border Protection officials announced the largest seizure of fentanyl powder and pills ever, a 254-pound shipment in a truck hauling cucumbers from Mexico. The shipment, law enforcement officials noted, was enough to administer lethal doses to 100 million Americans. The senior administration official said it was assumed that the shipment originated in China, which is the main source of fentanyl coming to the United States and Mexico as well. According to the Drug Enforcement Administration, which is the most ineffective government agency on the planet, they have not stopped any type of drug addiction in this country. They have not stopped the flow of any drug. And they have been around, y'all, for over 50 years. Okay. There are several reasons China is not helping. First, according to the U.S.-China Economic and Security Review Commission, China doesn't do a good job of regulating its chemical and pharmaceutical industries. Producers have close relations with local Communist Party officials whose main focus is on keeping the economy humming and not on the health and well-being of Americans thousands of miles away. Exactly. So what they're saying is they don't give a damn about Americans and what you're dying from. They are concerned with themselves and their economy. There you go. All right. And you couldn't sum it up better. If given the choice between shuttering a profit-making narcotics syndicate and foregoing tax revenue and jobs or letting it slide, many officials in China choose to let it slide. So the officials, political officials in China don't give a damn about Americans overdosing and dying from fentanyl. I mean, look, there's no other way of saying it. Second, despite Xing's promises to do more, there have been no serious push from the top of the Communist Party to break the logjam. Fentanyl is hard to stop because most countries, including China and the United States, place specific chemicals on a controlled list. All you have to do to keep a fentanyl-like drug off the list is to tweak a few molecules, and voila, you've made another legal variety. Y'all don't count on China for nothing. China, only thing they're going to do is keep flowing that shit in and making millions, possibly billions off of it every year. So even though China has added more than 35 analogs to its controlled list over the past 2 years, other fentanyl-like substances continue to be made legally in China. To remedy this, the senior administration official said the United States has asked China to establish fentanyl and all of its derivatives as their own class of drugs, thereby making any new analog illegal as well. But China so far has declined to do so. They're not going to do it though. One thing about China, they're one of the countries that don't do what America asks. They have a history of this. You know, it's almost any time America makes any request, China always finds a way to say no and refuse. Behind these bureaucratic snafus, however, lies something deeper. For one, inside China's system, there's no shortage of historical. Yeah, that's right. You know what? China, for almost 2 centuries, have used drugs as warfare. Part of their warfare is with drugs, even within their own country. If you go back and look at China, before the whole country became communist, part of the country was communist, part was not. How did they get the entire country communist? They drugged the other side and then went to war with them. They drugged them up with opium and waited for 3 years. And then they went in and fought the side that they poisoned with opium and got the people all high and messed up on drugs. And that's how they made the entire country communist. So drugs have always been a form of warfare. And that's why I'm telling you, and every time I used to put these videos up in the past, they would get demonetized. I'm telling you, China is doing a silent warfare on America. They don't give a damn about what fentanyl is doing to the people here. And as you can hear, nobody in China is willing to correct this. They're not willing to stop the fentanyl from coming in. They don't care. They don't see this as top priority. But in the meantime, you got Americans dying by the hundreds of thousands every year. I know they're lying about these numbers and downplaying it. Oh, it was only 72,000. No, it was probably 72,000 times 6. That's how many people died. America's never going to tell the truth. They're going to always downplay these numbers. But China does not respect America. And, you know, a country that does this to you, they don't like you. China don't like America. You don't poison a country that you like. You know, and the fentanyl is not just flowing in here, it's flowing into Canada, it's flowing into Mexico, it's flowing into South America, the islands. They're selling that fentanyl worldwide. And you can't really entirely be mad at China when the demand for the drug is high in the US, despite the fact that you got a high astronomical amount of deaths going on in America. The demand is still high for this shit. So you can't really put it all on China. So, December 3rd, 2 days after Trump announced his fentanyl deal with Zing, which was not no deal, y'all, it was all verbalized. Nothing was put in writing. The state-run Global Times repurposed that line, arguing that only if the United States cuts its dependence on drugs. Exactly. If you cut the drugs off, you got so many junkies in America, they'll just find another way to get the drug, or they'll just start getting high on something else. Would the problem be solved? So United States cut their dependence on the drug and the problem will be resolved. The Global Times also hypothesized that white Americans were more susceptible to fentanyl than any other ethnic groups, a claim that Westerners made about Chinese addiction to opium 150 years ago. See, this is what I'm telling you. All of this fentanyl from China stuff is revenge for the opium wars. That's what this is. This is Opium Wars Part 2. So you put the stigma of opium addiction on the Chinese. Now they are putting the stigma of fentanyl addiction on white Americans. Opium War Part 2. In addition to historical baggage, huge gaps persist in policing cultures of the two nations. American law enforcement officials complain that China's police are not crime fighters, but rather protectors of the Chinese Communist Party. Well, American law don't need to talk about anybody's form of policing when policing is so bad in this country. So that's my answer to you. Chinese police gripe that U.S. law enforcement is not sensitive to China's core interests. Tensions date back to 1990 when, following the Tiananmen Square crackdown on student-led protests, a federal judge in California allowed a convicted Chinese drug dealer to stay in the United States because the drug trafficker feared execution back home. In recent years, the United States have frustrated Beijing's attempt to expand Xing's crackdown on corruption to the United States. In 2017, U.S. authorities caught a band of Chinese security officers sent secretly to the United States to menace Chinese dissident billionaire Guo Wengui. A year earlier, the United States refused to send back to China the brother of a senior Chinese official who had been arrested on corruption charges in Beijing. There's no love lost between the two sides. A senior law enforcement officer involved in international cooperation told me. So it's no surprise we've got no movement on fentanyl from the People Republic of China. And they're not going to do nothing about it, y'all. They seriously don't care. They don't care. That fentanyl will always make it into this country. It doesn't matter what they put into place. It's always going to make it into the U.S. If it don't make it in, it will make it in across the border from Mexico and Canada. It will always be here. But please tell me what you think, ladies and gentlemen. Please leave your comment and subscribe. Don't forget to hit on the notification. Please leave your comment and subscribe. Don't forget to hit on the notification bell. And I'll see you on the next video. Peace, family. Ladies and gentlemen, as I stated before in my other video on George Foreman's daughter, there are more young people having heart attacks than ever before. And like I said, there was somebody in my area recently that died of a heart attack at 20. I mean, that it just blew everybody away. Now there's an article that came out on Market Watch March 10th, 2019. More Americans under the age of 40 are having heart attacks. When I was still working in corporate America, I worked with a man, and this guy literally was eating hoagies every day. And I was like, why do you have to eat a hoagie every day? But this is what he was doing. He was only in his 30s. And then one day he disappeared from the office, and I was like, okay, well, what happened? He had a heart attack. He had a heart attack, and I think he was about 35 years old at that time. And come to find out, his father also had a heart attack around that same age. So it could be a whole host of things, y'all. It could be the drugs, because there's so many people doing heavy-duty drugs across America, and accompanying that with the horrible diet in America. The food that's served to the public is really not the best food you should be eating. But let's get into this story, ladies and gentlemen. Days after Luke Perry's death at 52 from a stroke, a new study on heart attack rates has another grim reminder that the young are far from invincible and maybe even more vulnerable than they used to be. Heart attack rates are rising for adults under age 40, researchers found after comparing data of heart attack survivors ages 41 to 50 with those survivors who were 40 and younger. In fact, the proportion of heart attack patients under 40 has been climbing 2% every year for the last 10 years, according to findings slated this month. Researchers tried to unearth the risk factors explaining the rise and said substance abuse might share a part of the blame. That's what I was saying. And I kind of agree with that. Being that is really the number one killer in America right now. I mean, that surpasses gun violence, car accidents, virtually everything now. The youngest patients were more likely to use marijuana and cocaine compared to slightly older counterparts, even if they drank less alcohol. It seems that we are moving in the wrong direction. It says Dr. Ron Blankstein, a Harvard Medical School professor and preventive cardiologist at Brigham and Women's Hospital. Cardiologist at Brigham and Women's Hospital. Wow. It was once incredibly rare to see heart attack patients under 40, Blankstein noted, but some heart patients coming into emergency rooms now in their 20s and early 30s, he said. He examined patient treatment information for back in 2010. That's how I lost my mom, which encompasses heart attacks, plus several other types of conditions. It's America's leading cause of death. There's evidence stroke rates are climbing for younger Americans. Those strokes often target older individuals, according to Dr. Mitchell S.V. Elkine, chair of the American Stroke Association Advisory Committee. Strokes like the one that killed Luke Perry takes the lives of 140,000 people annually in America. That's scary. That's scary. And that is very true. I even remember growing up, it happened, but it was very rare for you to hear about a lot of young people having heart attacks and strokes. But unfortunately, today it's becoming common, and that's scary. Okay, many people think a heart attack is destined to happen, but the vast majority could be prevented with earlier detection. Too many people eating fast foods in this country that are young, you know, and sometimes you just have to understand, even if you like some of that food, you just can't have it all the time. It's not worth it. Do you really want to have a heart attack or stroke at 40 and younger? Those are the times when you're still raising a family and working and, you're in your career. And no, this is not the time for those sorts of things. You should be living an active lifestyle even in your 40s. But please tell me what you think, ladies and gentlemen. There are so many things happening in this country right now. It's not even funny. Please leave your comment and subscribe. Don't forget to hit on the notification bell, and I'll see you on the next video. Peace, family. Ladies and gentlemen, this opioid plague is going from bad to worse. When you think can't, it just can't get worse. This is really it. Then something else crops up. This came out March 6, 2019, Medical Express. New Medical Center. Researchers found that admissions for infective endocarditis at the Ohio State University Wexner Medical Center doubled between 2012 and 2017, and that a 436% increase. Wow, 436%? And drug-related infections accounted for most of that increase. That is crazy. 436% increase? Wow. Oh my goodness. That's most striking is how quickly this problem got out of hand, said lead author Dr. Serena Day, a cardiologist fellow at Ohio State University 5 years ago. This disease was very uncommon for us. Now it's become so common that we can't keep up. Day added, in a news release from the American College of Cardiology. Wow. Okay. What is infective endocarditis? Okay, so it occurs when harmful bacteria build up on the heart's valve or inside lining of the heart. This type of infection died in the system that same year, the study findings shows. So these are definitely younger people because, we know the ages of the drug users, but they should not be having this problem at all. And that's the thing about drug addiction. It always leads to other things. I have another article that I was looking at, and it was talking about how syphilis is really exploding now. because of all of the drug use. So you're going to have all these diseases cropping up, and some of them will be deadly. Most heroin users first abuse opioid painkillers such as OxyContin. Heroin accounted for nearly 1/3 of opioid-related deaths in 2017, according to the U.S. Center for Disease Control and Prevention. In 2017, dying from an opioid overdose became, for the first time, higher than the risk of dying in a vehicle crash, according to the National Safety Council. Day also explained that the sharp rise, that is scary. You know, it is costing the U.S. a fortune on these drug addicts. It really is. And my question is, how much more are you going to pour into this thing? You know, they are spending a fortune. You got to think about all of these addicts, the deaths, the autopsies that are done. You got babies born addicted. A lot of the babies are born addicted and they have venereal disease. You don't even know what lifelong, long-term health effects that's going to have, because the opioid babies are born with smaller heads. So you know that's got to have an impact. You have all of the fentanyl deaths. And they just want to shrug their shoulders and call this a public health issue. And these people are dying every single year by the hundreds of thousands. I don't care what any of you say. There is no way all of this is going on and it was just 72,000 deaths. You are fooling no one. It is way more deaths than that. That's why the panic was on, especially that. That's why the panic was on, especially during the election in 2016. There's a lot of people impacted by this. People have family members, they have loved ones, or they work with someone that have these issues, and it is just not going away. It's not. And you have to think about all of the foster care children that are pouring in there on a regular basis. This is costing them a fortune, y'all. But please ladies and gentlemen, this is a story that came out in the New York Daily News, February 26, 2019. You know, they are still overwhelmingly in New York arresting Blacks and Hispanics for low-level type marijuana arrests. So it's actually going up for Blacks and Hispanics and going down for whites. You would think white people didn't touch pot the way they go after Blacks and Hispanics up in New York. So let's get into this story. You know, remember, they can't get you on no most violent crime. So the biggest thing they can get people in our community on is still overwhelmingly marijuana. Despite a push to decriminalize marijuana, the rate of African Americans and Hispanics getting arrested on pot charges is climbing, according to recent city stats. Overall, weed arrests are a fifth of what they were during the spring of 2018, dropping from 2,652 at the end of June to 520 at the end of December. Led the push for reforming pot enforcement. Police will still arrest public tokers if they're on probation or parole, or a violent offender, or if cops deem them a public safety threat. You know how easy it is for them to look at you doing absolutely nothing and claim you are a threat? Too easy. Too easy. If you blaze without ID or have an active warrant, you're still going downtown for getting high. If the pool of people who are not eligible for more lenient treatment are more likely to be Black or Hispanic, then the law is being enforced in a racist way, Landsman said. Those disparity numbers are going the wrong way. The solution, the councilman said, is to stop enforcement completely, especially in light of the likelihood the state legislature and the governor will legalize recreational marijuana use in the next 3 months. And it's being legalized all over. I just saw an article in New Mexico. New Mexico is getting ready to legalize marijuana. So it's happening all over.